Effective altruism is a social project that poses an old question in a new way. Instead of asking only whether we ought to help others, it asks how we can help others as much as possible with the time and resources available. The movement therefore combines moral urgency with empirical discipline, aiming for measurable good rather than symbolic charity. This essay explains the logic behind the project, reviews its main achievements, addresses common criticisms, and outlines why it remains a hopeful approach for the decades ahead. The philosophical roots of effective altruism rest on a simple observation. If every person has equal moral worth, then geography, nationality, or personal familiarity should not determine who receives our aid. Thinkers such as Peter Singer popularized this idea near the end of the 20th century, but a new generation of scholars and activists turned it into a coordinated program of action. They insisted that moral ambition must be matched by practical rigor, because good intentions alone do not guarantee good outcomes. Central to that rigor is the practice of cause prioritization. Effective altruists begin by scanning the full range of problems facing sentient life, then ranking them by scale, neglect, and tractability. An intervention is attractive when it concerns many lives or life years, when it lacks sufficient existing funding, and when additional resources predictably translate into large gains. This ranking process resembles triage in an emergency ward, but on a planetary scale. It directs attention to issues such as malaria prevention, lead exposure, factory farming, and catastrophic biological risks, which historically received less philanthropic money than their impact warrants. A second pillar is cost-effectiveness analysis. Practitioners compare charities and policy options in the same way investors compare strategies, but the currency is human and animal welfare rather than financial return. Randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and careful Bayesian reasoning all form part of the toolkit. The goal is not to reduce compassion to spreadsheets. The goal is to keep compassion from drifting toward vanity projects or fashionable causes that feel satisfying but deliver little real benefit. The results of this discipline are striking. One widely cited estimate indicates that providing long-lasting insecticidal nets against malaria can save a human life for roughly $5,000, an amount attainable for many donors in high-income countries. Hundreds of thousands of deaths have already been averted through this channel, along with untold suffering from non-fatal bouts of the disease. Programs to treat severe acute malnutrition, deworm school children, and supplement vitamin A show similarly high returns on investment, again revealing that moral urgency, when coupled with data, can produce enormous dividends for the global poor. Animal welfare has undergone a comparable transformation. Effective altruists observed that tens of billions of land animals live and die each year in intensive systems that leave little room for natural behavior or even minimal comfort. They funded corporate campaigns that persuaded food companies to adopt cage-free standards, financed research into plant-based and cultivated alternatives to meat, and explored policy avenues to reduce the routine overuse of antibiotics in agriculture. Because farmed animals vastly outnumber shelter pets, yet receive far less philanthropic attention, reallocating even a small fraction of global charity budgets toward this neglected area promises colossal gains in prevented suffering. The movement also directs its gaze to the long-term future. Advances in biotechnology and artificial intelligence carry the potential for unprecedented flourishing, but they also introduce risks that could irrevocably curtail civilization. Effective altruists therefore support work on biorisk surveillance, pathogen-agnostic vaccines, and AI alignment research. By reducing existential threats, they aim to safeguard the prospects of generations not yet born. These ambitions rest on a growing institutional infrastructure. Organizations such as GiveWell filter thousands of aid projects and recommend only those that meet stringent evidence and cost benchmarks. Open Philanthropy operates as a large grant maker that combines careful reasoning with a willingness to fund bold experiments. Their analyses and recommendations are freely available, allowing donors of any size to align their giving with the best available evidence. Funding flows have risen in parallel. GiveWell has publicly set a goal of directing roughly $1 billion per year to its top charities, a target that seemed implausible when the organization began with two founders working from a kitchen table. Open philanthropy now disburses several $100 million annually, and other grant makers have adopted similar evidence-focused approaches. These commitments demonstrate that evidence-based giving can scale from grassroots enthusiasm to institutional heft. Growth has not been free of turbulence. The collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX in late 2022 removed a major donor and forced the movement to reflect on risk management and reputational exposure. In response, funding bodies diversified their portfolios, tightened conflict of interest policies, and invested in ethics training for emerging leaders. While painful, the episode reinforced a core principle of effective altruism. Every strategy must withstand scrutiny, because the welfare of unknown beneficiaries is at stake. Critics raise several objections. Some argue that the approach is too demanding, implying that ordinary citizens must surrender most of their discretionary income for distant causes. Effective altruists answer that ethical life is indeed challenging, yet can also be joyful when donors see concrete results. Others worry that quantitative metrics oversimplify complex social contexts. Practitioners reply that acknowledging complexity does not absolve us from choosing among options, and that even imperfect numbers often outperform intuition alone. A different critique holds that the movement overemphasizes distant beneficiaries at the expense of local solidarity. Effective altruists respond that proximity should not trump effectiveness, but they encourage people to strengthen their neighborhoods through volunteering and civic engagement, while still donating where money goes farthest. The framework is designed to be additive rather than exclusive. Beyond donations, the philosophy influences career choices. University graduates weigh the counterfactual impact of various professions, asking where their talents can fill pressing gaps. Engineers join biorisk teams, economists design macroeconomic policies that anticipate pandemics, and lawyers draft frameworks for responsible AI deployment. This career lens broadens the remit of ethical action and aligns personal ambition with collective well-being. Effective altruism also interacts fruitfully with mainstream philanthropy and public policy. Governments consult cost-effectiveness research when setting aid budgets. Foundations collaborate with evaluators modeled on GiveWell to vet grantees. Journalists reference impact metrics when informing readers which charities stretch a dollar the farthest. These cross-pollinations suggest that the ethos of doing the most good is permeating broader institutions rather than remaining a niche subculture. Looking ahead, the movement is poised to tackle emerging challenges. Artificial intelligence governance, climate-resilient infrastructure for the global south, and genomic surveillance networks for early pathogen detection all demand both technical expertise and moral imagination. Effective altruism offers a systematic framework for allocating scarce research funds and political attention among these vast undertakings, always asking which path saves or improves the greatest number of lives and expectation. In sum, effective altruism is not a static doctrine, but a dynamic methodology for love made practical. It rejects fatalism that views suffering as inevitable and complacency that treats good intentions as enough. By marrying compassion to evidence and urgency to analysis, the movement turns concern for distant strangers into measurable relief. Its successes so far hint at a larger promise, that humanity, equipped with reason and empathy, can build a future in which far more beings not only live, but live well.